Paramount had an extensive repertoire of instrumentalists and crooners, and that's what's on Dennis's masters. But what happened to all the master recordings of those legendary blues musicians? And I'm still not clear how Paramount attracted so many artists from the Mississippi Delta to Grafton, Wisconsin. Music historian Dick Spotswood says the secret to Paramount's success with the blues was simple: geography.
Paramount was located here in the Midwest, and it had its representatives and studios after 1923 in Chicago.
Although Grafton was a mostly white community, it was only 100 miles from Chicago, a city that by the early 20th century had become a powerful magnet for Delta blacks. Tens of thousands were making their way north to the Windy City, looking for jobs but hungry for the music of the South.
And so when these great performers all hit town, Paramount was there. They were able and willing to record them.
Recording blues divas like Ma Rainey, Ida Cox, and Alberta Hunter was a stroke of genius. Paramount turned the ethnic and racial bias of the record industry in their favor.
Well, before the 1920s, the record industry had very little to do with the music of America's minorities. The hillbillies in the South were not represented at all. American blacks in the South were represented by minstrel stereotypes.
Labels like OK and Paramount made money from the growing economic clout of the black working class and opened a window on the richness of African-American oral traditions.
And so tragedies that you could see as belonging to people of an entire class, of an entire society, were expressed as individual grievances. And that's what the blues is about. When Mamie Smith recorded her Crazy Blues, becoming the first black woman to sing the blues, all of a sudden the world was becoming a slightly different place.
In a 1965 interview, the legendary bluesman Son House recalled recording in Grafton.
I had a hotel, a little small hotel, 2-story. That was just special for all recorders. And they give Charlie $100 for me, him, and Willie, and Louise to buy cigarettes, sandwiches, and get us drinks. He'd ask you how many songs you have in mind that you're going to play. Well, at that time, he was paying $15 a side, 10-inch records. I got $40 for mine. People back home was working for 75 cents a day. Oh, I thought that was big.
Dick doesn't know what happened to the missing Paramount Blues archive, but says some of these recordings continue to be unearthed by collectors. A rare Son House disc with 2 unheard songs recently resurfaced.
We had never heard those performances before, and now, thanks to the survival of one single copy, we have 2 more really great performances by Son House from 1930.
I'm meeting Janet Erickson at the site of the former recording studio. She was there when the plant closed and may be able to tell me about the missing records. Now, your father worked at this company, is that right?
Yes, he did.
What exactly did he do for the company?
Well, Dad was chief recording engineer. He dealt with the artists pretty much, and he was the pressing plant foreman.
Did he ever bring his work home?
He brought records home, and he would take them upstairs and play them on the Victrola, and I would be with him, and I would wind up the Victrola, and he would play these records. Then he would take them and he would write all sorts of things on them and take them back the next day.
Now, do you remember having any interactions with the artists?
An older lady came walking out of the studio, and Dad said it was Ma Rainey, and she came out, and Dad put me on her lap.
Now, do you remember how the people of Grafton responded to these African Americans coming to this segregated town?
I believe they really didn't know how to react to the black artists. They've never seen them before, and it was something new. They were treated well in the plant itself, but they were hushed in and hushed out most of the time.
Talk to me about your recollections of what happened when Paramount Record Company closed?
I remember looking out of the window and then going outside and seeing the trucks there, lots of trucks. My dad was very saddened by the whole affair because music was kind of his life.
But your father was losing his job.
He was losing his job, yes.
And this was the Depression.
It was the Depression, the middle of the Depression, and Dad was very, very upset.
Now, do you know what they did with the records and the masters when the plant closed? What Janet told me next was a key piece of information for my investigation. I'm bringing Dennis to the former site of the Paramount factory to tell him what I've discovered. Your masters were not the blues. What you have is a pop crooner singing some lovely ballads and a banjo player doing a Dixie melody.
Well, it's nice to know what they are.
They're still kind of cool, and they're still a big part of history because they are masters from that period. They were made at Paramount Record Company.
What happened when the company closed down?
This is when the answer to your story gets really interesting. Now, do you know what they did with the records and the masters when the plant closed?
Some of them were sailed into the river by disgruntled employees. And they were very, very, very upset because they lost their jobs.
They tossed them in the river.
They were dumped?
So, it's possible some of those missing Paramount records are gathering silt at the bottom of the Milwaukee River. Rich Henry and his deep blue scuba diving team have volunteered to help us get to the bottom of the mystery. Let's come over here and I want to show you something. So if you look right over here, we have some scuba divers and they're going to dive down to the deepest part of the river to see if they can find any remnants of the Paramount Record Company on the bottom of the river.
That's wild.
Can't tell my future, I can't tell my past. Lord, it seems like every minute.
After hours combing the river bottom, the divers were unable to rescue any Paramount recordings from their watery grave in the Milwaukee River. We discovered that in the winter of 2000, a dam adjacent to the old chair factory had been removed. Our dive team believes the excavation had disturbed the riverbed. Any records dumped here 70 years ago may have been washed away. Blues fans will just have to keep scouring yard sales and flea markets in hope of discovering those long-lost musical treasures.